Gentle Storm, Chapter 3, Safe House. At Blue Ridge High School, Jacob and the others stop in the lobby. The girl says, "Where have you been? You just left me here all alone, as the six gunmen had been here. What is wrong with you?" Jay says, "Sorry, we had to." It gets darker in the school. Jacob looks out the window. It's dark as night. Roger says, "That makes no sense. It's only 1:34. Jacob walks out of the school and looks up into the sky. The others come up behind him. Jacob says, "They're here." The girl looks up and says, "Oh my gosh, there's so many." Jacob looks at her, then puts two fingers to her forehead. Her clothes turn white and white wings come out of her back. The girl says, What did you do?" Jacob says, "Awaken you, princess of dimensional ponies. Welcome back." The girl says, "What the heck are you talking about?" David says, "How do you know this when you're still Jacob? Wouldn't only Thunderstorm remember this?" Jacob says, "You idiot. Me and Thunderstorm may have some personality differences, but we are the same soul, the same person/pony. We are one and the same. I am Thunderstorm, and he's me. Understand?" Dave says, "Yeah." Jacob says, "Good. Get to each of your families and meet me at this coordinate." He hands them each a paper. The girl says, "What about your family?" Jacob says, "I'll help you gather up yours." The girl says, "What about yours?" Jacob says, "What about them?" The girl says, "Jacob." Jacob says, "We're wasting time. Come on." He grabs her arm and they disappear. Dave says, I got some rounding up to do. See you later, guys." He teleports out. Roger says, "See you later, JT." He teleports out. JT teleports out after him, where the girl lives. They both appear in front of her house. The girl says, "How do you know where I live?" Jacob says, "No time. We got to get your family to safety." The girl says, "Fine, but you're answering me later." Jacob says, "Okay." They walk into her house. Jacob turns back to normal and says, "I don't want to give anyone a heart attack." The girl says, "I was wondering when you were going to do that." A man says, "Who is this?" The girl says, "Jacob. He's a friend." The man says, "A friend, huh? Why is he here?" The, the girl says, "Dad, we're in great danger and he's here to take us somewhere safe." Jacob says, if you don't believe us, then just look outside towards the high school." The man walks outside and looks. His eyes go wide and he says, "What is it?" Jacob says, "A cloud made of thousands and thousands of dark pony/human crossbreeds. They will kill every human that they find. That is why we have to get you out of here." The man says, "I'll go get your mother and sister." The girl says, "I'll get my grandparents." They both run off. Jacob says, "I'll just stay here then." He leans up against the wall. A little blonde-haired girl walks up to him and says, "Hi, I saw you at beach." Jacob smiles and says, "Yes, you did, kiddo. Good to see you again. How you been?" The little girl says, "Good." Jacob says, "Awesome." The girl says, "Why are you here?" Jacob says, "To keep you and everyone else safe. Nothing will hurt you, I promise." The little girl says, "Thank you, but safe from what?" Jacob says, "Anything that threatens you." The little girl says, "Oh." The man comes back with two women. The girl runs up with an old woman and an old man. Jacob says, "Are we all here?" The girl says, "Yep." The old man says, "We're ready." Jacob says, "Good." They teleport out of the house at a abandoned cabin in the middle of the woods. They teleport into it. Everyone looks around in surprise. The man says, "What the hell was that?" The little girl says, "Awesome!" Jacob walks out of the cabin, but the man says, "Hey, hang on there, boy." Jacob stops and looks back at him with red eyes. The man says, what the? Jacob looks forward again and walks away. The girl says, hang on, Jacob. She runs after him. She catches up to him and says, where are you going? Jacob says, just going outside to escape your family's questions. If they find out that I'm the king of the dark ponies, then they'll never trust me to protect them or anything. The girl says, we're going to surprises, right? Jacob says, I don't plan anything less. David and his family teleport in front of the house, then Ratchet's, JT's, and finally Michael's. Jacob looks at them all and says, everyone is here and safe. It's finally time to get started. End of chapter 3. Thank you for coming back. Thank you for listening. And see you next time.